Put your hand on your knee. There is a letter at the front of that word that you did not say. 400 years ago you would have said it, not as decoration and not as a flourish, as a sound made with the back of the tongue every single time by everyone without thinking about it. English is full of these letters standing inside ordinary words, holding a place, making no noise at all. Most of them are the remains of something that used to be spoken out loud. Some of them never were. Somebody put those there on purpose and had a reason and wrote the reason down. Those are the ones worth opening. There are 7 letters in this file, 7 ordinary words, and in each one a letter that nobody pronounces. The K in knee, which was a real sound for the first 900 years English was written down. The G and the H in night, which were not a letter going quiet, they were a sound leaving the language entirely. The L in half, which did not fall silent so much as dissolve into the vowel beside it. Then 3 of a different kind. The B in debt, which has never been spoken by anybody in any century. The S in island, which belongs to a completely different word. The L in could, which was copied from its neighbours because the word looked wrong without one. And the T in often, which went quiet, stayed quiet for 400 years, and then came back. It would be tidy if they had all died the same way. They did not. 3 wore out, 3 were placed, 1 was buried and then dug up. 7 letters, 7 different endings. Start with the 3 that were real, the K in knee, and in night, and in no. An English speaker in the year 1200 said it the way a German speaker still says knie today. The same word, with the K still standing in it. A hard stop at the back of the mouth, and then the N. It began loosening in the 15th century. Later teaching manuals written for German speakers record English learners being told to make something closer to a T or a D there, which is what a consonant does on its way out. By the 17th century, in educated speech, it was gone. The G and the H in night is a different death entirely. That was not a letter falling off the front of a word. That was a whole sound leaving the language. A rasp in the back of the throat, the sound still sitting in the middle of the German word Nacht. English scribes had a letter of their own for it once, and then the presses arrived without that letter in the type case, and by 1500 the mouth had stopped making it anyway, and the L in half and walk and talk went a third way again. It did not drop off, and it did not die. It melted into the vowel in front of it, and left that vowel slightly longer and slightly rounder than it had been. A stop, a rasp, and a melt. Nothing about those 3 is the same process. They are 3 unrelated accidents that happen to leave the same kind of scar. 3 down, 4 to go, and the next 3 did not happen by accident at all. Take the word debt. It came into English from French, and in French it was dette. In English it was written debt and debt and debt for 200 years. There is no B in any of them. The B arrives in the 14th century, and it arrives for one reason. The Latin word standing behind the French one is debitum. Scholars looked at an English word, saw a Latin ancestor, and put the ancestor's letter back into a word that had never carried it. Nobody had said it before they did that. Nobody has said it since. The same hand is on island. Island is an Old English word, igland, a piece of land with water around it. It is a farmer's word, and it is as native as grass. The word isle is French, and behind the French is the Latin insula. 2 words, 2 separate families, no shared ancestor anywhere, but on the page in the 16th century they looked like relatives. So the native word borrowed the foreign one's S and has been carrying it ever since. And then there is could. Would has an L because it earned one. The older form of the word had it, and people said it. Should has an L for the same honest reason. Could did not. It was could. Its L was added so that it would match the 2 words it usually stands next to. Remember which of those 3 letters are honest. It matters later. Somebody did notice at the time. In 1598, a schoolmaster in a Shakespeare play loses his temper about the way people are talking. He complains that they say "corf" for calf and "horf" for half. He is complaining about the melt. He wants the L in half put back into the mouth, and the melt is not ancient history to him. It is happening in the street outside while he writes. 6 of the 7 accounted for, 1 left, and that schoolmaster is not finished. He says one more thing in the same breath. In the same sentence, he insists that debt must be pronounced with its B. He spells it out, letter by letter, to make sure nobody misses it. So in a single complaint, 400 years ago, one man sneers at a letter that ordinary speech was in the middle of wearing away by itself, and demands a letter that no human being had ever said aloud. He could not tell the two apart either. He was written to be laughed at, but the position he is defending, that the spelling is the truth and the mouth is the error, did not stay funny for long. Dictionaries hardened it into a rule. In 1828, Noah Webster recorded that the N in kiln, silent for generations, was being pronounced again by people who had learned the word from a page. That is the moment the arrow turns around. For 1,000 years, speech had led and spelling had followed, late and badly. Now spelling had begun to lead. The T in often is the 7th letter in this file. It went quiet in the 15th century, and it stayed quiet. Then classrooms full of children read the word before they ever heard it and put the T back. Both pronunciations are alive right now, in the same room, in the same family, and neither side thinks it is the one making an error, which leaves the falcon. The L in falcon is not old. French had falcon with no L at all. The L was put in during the same Latin fever that gave debt its B. It stayed silent for centuries. Today, almost everybody says it. A letter that was never spoken, invented so that a word would look better educated, has become the way the word sounds. The forgery is now the pronunciation. That is 4 L's in this one file. 1 wore away on its own, 2 were honest, and 1 talked its way into being real. There is one more drawer in this file, and it is a gentler one. Not every invented letter was vanity. Some of them were honest mistakes, made carefully, by people doing their best with what they knew. Scissors was scissors. It came through French, from a Latin verb meaning to cut. The C was added because a scholar traced it to a different Latin word altogether, one that means to split. Right instinct, wrong ancestor, and the C is still there. A scythe collected a C the same way. Rhyme collected an H in the 17th century, borrowed from rhythm, 2 words that are related by sound and by nothing else. And a ptarmigan, a bird from the Scottish Highlands, was given a P in the 1680s. Its name is Gaelic. There is no Greek anywhere in its family. Somebody decided it looked like a word that ought to begin with a P, and so it does. In 1755, Samuel Johnson's dictionary closed the lid on most of these. After that, a spelling was not a habit anymore. It was a ruling, and you could be shown to be wrong. 7 letters. 3 of them were spoken for centuries and wore away. 3 of them were placed by hand and never spoken at all. And 1 of them was buried and then dug back up by a classroom. A silent letter is not laziness, and it is not an accident of spelling. It is the place where writing and speech stopped agreeing with each other, and neither one of them backed down. Put your hand back on your knee. There is a letter sitting at the front of that word that stopped being said 400 years before you were born. You have carried it since you learned to speak, and you have never once had to.